No, not yet.
Wow, that's some answer. Are we going to have upgrades?
Yeah, I'm going to be working on the upgrade screen probably after the next demo that we're working on. But yeah, once we get the screen in, then it'll be easier to work on the actual mechanics for putting, like, there'll be stuff to collect and stuff to spend to upgrade them. But it's kind of unwise in my experience to put too much specific stuff into the upgrade system until you actually have it so you can actually use it, because you end up changing stuff a little bit. So you don't want to put, like, we have all the upgrades basically designed for the weapons and the player ship and they all function, but in terms of revealing what those are, like, if I reveal what they are, they might change by the time the game comes out. So
Nothing wrong with that. But we have upgrades that are automatic, right? They don't require interface. You just, whatever. It'd be like picking up the level 2 laser in Descent, right? Only it's better than that.
Some, there's a few,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
mostly the upgrades will happen between levels. I guess that's one specific thing.
but we actually have support for them in Challenge Mode.
Yeah, we do.
We should just add one to the next Challenge Mode level we release.
Yeah, we'll do that. That sounds good.
All right, I'll do it. We don't.
Well, objective-wise, there'll be reactors in most levels, so that's the primary objective. But like in terms of how the hostages are distributed and like the sub-objectives, like we'll be able to turn off matsens. That's our current plan. So there's going to be like power cores throughout the level, which will either unlock doors or trigger something to deactivate. So there'll be a few simple elements that we use in different ways, but basically the objective is almost always to blow up the reactor. It's just how you get there and how there could be multiple reactors in a few levels, but other than that, like most levels will have blow up the reactor and get out of the level as their primary objective, but the secondary objectives and how you get there will change from level to level, and they'll just be different environments and stuff like that for variety. Like the game is split up into thirds, so each third of the game is like kind of in a different environment.
I had an idea that Luke shot down, but it was that the robots would try to blow up the reactor and you would have to stop them until something occurred, like all the hostages were rescued.
But,
he said that'd be really hard to do, which I don't really
Well, we
understand.
also already did that in Descent 3 level 5, and I didn't find it to be a terribly enjoyable level.
I'll play it. Maybe you guys just made a mistake.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe we messed it up.
I also think it's not really an objective, but we need to give the player more reason to chase down robots. It shouldn't just be, I want to squash every bug in the level. It should be, there's a reason for me to risk, some damage to my ship in order to go after that guy.
But most robots end up going after you.
Right,
instead.
they do, yeah.
But yeah, some robots,
Or
they
they're
can run away.
protecting a secret or something like that. Yeah.
I would say we're probably not going to have a slider. We'll probably just keep it like it is now, and then maybe an option to turn it off. But eventually there could be some mod tools that allow you to modify it, but we're not planning on supporting a variable ship bob for the final release.
Do we turn it off in VR?
No, it's still there.
It's very minor. Though. It's a lot smaller than it was in Descent 1 and 2, right?
Yeah.
I forget what it was like in 3.
I don't remember either. It's a good question. Yeah, I think we're planning on something like that.
Yeah,
There'll be some
fun.
destroyable elements of the level. Not a whole lot of them, but we do want video screens of some kind that blow up.
The ones that have our backers' faces on them?
Mostly those, yeah. There will be video screens that have various elements, including the secret areas that have will show people and like have like a little bio readout or something as you can shoot out. So the backer secrets for the people who got their picture in the game, those will all be monitors, and you can blow up those monitors with whatever weapon you want, and those will be found in different secret areas, and there'll probably be an achievement or something like that for finding all the backer pictures.
Finding and destroying all of them.
Yeah, so we'll take like original pictures that whoever sends us, and we'll make them kind of stylized, like more like our interface looks, and then yeah, render those to a texture.
That's a pretty interesting thought, mapping them to a sphere, like an armor orb or something like that.
Yeah, I guess we.
Hadn't thought about that.
It might look a little weird.
I think it would
mapping
look
a regular
weird.
picture to
Yeah.
a sphere. We're trying to keep this story a secret for now. We just don't want to give away too much because we might. It's still in flux a little bit. We have multiple drafts of the story, and we just aren't sure which direction we're going with the final stuff. We have a general idea, just the details of the story we're not ready to reveal yet. I think we can say it takes place in the solar system.
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
There are many solar systems, right? If
Our
the lowercase s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in this solar system, you'll be familiar with the places, more or less.
For a while.
No, we're not going to do hot and cold areas because that requires a lot of extra UI work and stuff like that. We have some systems for, blocking off certain areas of the level, but we don't have a huge map where you go this one place, you see you can't get past it and have to come back later. Like, we don't have a big internet connected world like that, so doing that sort of system doesn't make a whole lot of sense because it takes a lot of time to do it correctly.
It's easy to create things that are difficult for the AI to like pathfind through, and
Yeah, that's
that kind. It adds layers of complexity to the game, which I would prefer we didn't do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We talked about that for a while. To make
I think there's still a chance because it's just kind of an interesting gameplay mechanic where they can't be damaged at a certain point. So I think it's still possible for some of the more advanced spots, but we'll see. It's not a really hard thing to do. So like there's a lot of visual effects I think you need to do with it and sound that goes with it, but I think it's possible. We'll do a bot or two that has a shield.
I like the idea of a mirror. I tend to think it needs to come with some kind of a penalty, or you would just leave it on all the time. I think it's particularly good for challenge mode and multiplayer. I often want to, like, there's something coming up behind me, or I hear Blade scream, and he's not in front of me, so maybe he's behind me, but you don't really want to be turning around constantly. So I don't know. I think we should have a review mirror.
I tend to say we should not. Or if you do, you like have to push a button and then like it comes up.
Oh, that's what I think it should be. I mean, really, I just want to look behind for 1 second, or less than that. Yeah.
I think having something rendering constantly is just not really what our game is about.
We'll render it 4 times constantly, so the penalty will be so large it will
Yeah.
be used very sparingly.
I think they're talking about like when the reactor is shaking, your ship actually moves around,
Right.
and with the Earth shaker, the ship also moves. Versus like there's also camera shake where the camera moves, but your ship actually stays in the same orientation. And I think we'll actually support both types. I think we actually have support for both types, but I'm just not using it that much to actually move and rotate the player while you're shaking. Actually, the moving we don't have support for, but we do have support for rotating the ship.
Did we have camera shake in D1 and D2?
Yeah, for the reactor at the very least, and then Mega Missile maybe. I know the Earth shaker did.
Yeah. Okay. But so it wasn't ship movement. It was just the.
It would move the ship and it would rotate
Okay.
the ship.
Yeah, it was definitely moving the ship. So we did both.
Yeah. Yes, we will have good camera shake. And we have a little bit less just random shaking for weapons compared to the playable teaser, if you played one of the more recent demos. But yes.
You can already play the demos offline, right?
Yeah, we don't have any online connectivity requirements. Not the base game, but it's possible we'll explore that in an expansion. It's something we've talked about, but we just want to focus on the primary robots, and that's what we have time to do. So it's something that's possible we could change, but right now we're not planning on it.
Well, Dan created a level section where he essentially turned robots into turrets by putting them someplace they couldn't get out of, but they could fire through.
Yeah.
So I guess he would vote yes on the turrets, but anyway, we'll see.
No.
Yeah, I don't really like that. I mean, it's a good game mechanic for a certain kind of game, but usually once you find a robot, you kill them pretty quickly. So their ammo limit would have to be pretty low in order for that to come into play. And then it's a certain amount of AI work for them to go somewhere, get that, come back, fight. And then are they supposed to manage their ammo, like know that they're getting low? So I think it would turn into chasing down robots more often for not that much reward.
I think the closest thing we'll have to that is like a boss. We'll have multiple stages or multiple things that they do, and there'll be like a recharge between, like their really powerful weapon. But I think that's the closest we would have. Yes, so
There's always cheat codes, yeah, and there's plenty of cheat keys right now, which my guess is actually, I don't remember this, but I'm pretty sure the cheat codes that we had in Descent 1 and 2 were just, they used to just be mapped to a single key. You know, like stop the robots from firing at me. That was a cheat code. I don't remember what it was, but it was also a very useful thing in debugging, because sometimes when you're doing something you don't want the robots firing at you. So yeah, we got plenty of functionality. We could just map to cheat codes now.
There is no
We'll have
plasma.
a color slider.
Yeah, the reflex has gotten more green. It looks more like a plasma, and it fires more like a plasma than it used to. So it's not plasma though. I mean, if you want to call it plasma, it could be. But quad lasers, I think you'll find something in the final game that makes you happy.
Yes, and the voice acting. I think there will be intros that before each level to propel the story.
Intros.
Briefing.
Yeah.
Brief. Yeah.
No, not
Both.
full screen briefing.
Yeah.
Similar to Descent.
I mean, structurally, yeah, it'll be similar to Descent.
There's not going to be like full screen animated cutscenes. They're holographic elements, but yes, it does. I'm actually working on the UI right now, like the final UI. So there are different elements in the cockpit that show different things, and yeah, they're holographic. Like they're not panels, because panels take up too much real estate and block too much of the screen. But we do have holographic elements, and they're useful in VR and non-VR, and we can move them around if we need to. Like when you turn off the cockpit, they'll probably shift position a little bit.
Well, there will be physical goods, because that's a backer reward. Whether we'll get that into stores, I think the trend has been going on for a while, and it's certainly continuing that many games are not available in physical form, or anyway, in a physical, a brick and mortar store. But we're going to make them anyway, so I suppose we haven't really talked about. Well, I guess you could continue to buy them on our website if you wanted physical goods.
But usually, like, if a game is successful, there'll be a physical version added later, and I think that's definitely a route we could take. Like a collector's edition with all the...
20 years from now, when we're doing our next Kickstarter, we'll have physical signed copies from...
That's right.
From the teens.
There won't be special keys generally, but there will be secrets and doors that open with a certain series of events, but they're not necessarily keys. Like the security keys in our game are only for opening security doors, but there could be other secrets and other ways of opening doors that don't involve keys.
Yeah, all the secrets we've ever done, and well, anyway, in Descent 1, 2, and I think in 3, once you found it, you just opened the door, right? It wasn't further protected, or there would be switches too.
There could be switches.
But you never had to go find an object so you could open that.
Yeah, there could be also, like, you had to fly through a certain spot to open
Right.
it, and it would be open for a certain amount of time. We're gonna try not to have too many of those, because those are just obscure, but some other slightly more obvious trigger could open a door for a small amount of time, and maybe you can trigger it multiple times, depending on how secret we want it to be. Like, people like really obscure secrets sometimes that do something really special, so we'll try to get as many of those into the game as we can, but most of the secrets will be kind of obvious if you know what to look for.
Well, I would have thought it was impossible for people to do mod Descent like they did without us releasing much, although we eventually released the source code, but there were editors written long before we did that. But I think at the least we're going to release information, documentation about formats and so forth. And it's not out of the question to reach that stretch goal. I forget, we're like 25K away or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
We're still going to release like the level editor and the decal editor, and maybe one or two other ones, depending on what's useful. But yeah, we have lots of different editors we could easily release. And we can release the source code for most of that stuff, I think. So people can modify it better and change how it outputs the format. But I think the hardest part is really the Unity side of things, like taking a level that we create and converting it, and then making it available for the game to actually read. That could be the hard part, but someone can solve it. It might be us if we hit the goal. It might be someone else.
that's a good question. I kind of like the idea of, I do like the idea of weapons that have some, some dimensionality to it. So like if you're in a room that's not very tall, but it's wide, and you've got a horizontally spreading shockwave, or even just weapon spread coming at you, that's a lot more dangerous in that room than it is in other rooms where you can move in multiple dimensions. So right now the robots don't have anything that really spreads out like that, right? I mean, it could just be 5 projectiles coming out in a plane.
Yeah. No, there's nothing right now that does that. We'll definitely give it some thought, and if it doesn't make it into the first release, we'll think about it for robots in the future. Let me try it again. Our map making tool is just like a simple 3D modeling program that uses distorted cubes, or segments, is what we call them. So we'll release that, but as far as a Halo-like system, I think that's pretty much out of the question, because that requires a lot more work, like engine level work, to make that kind of thing work. What was the other part of the question?
No.
Linux support? Yeah, we have
right.
Linux
Yeah.
support. We're going to support the Linux version when we release it. I'm not going to just throw it out there and hope it works. I mean, we hope it works, but if it doesn't, we'll fix it.
So when we started on this thing, we didn't know about that there was another game coming out under the Descent brand, and we actually talked to Interplay about licensing or whatever, doing a Descent game, Descent branded game, Descent game with all the copyrighted material in it, and that was difficult. Those were difficult. We didn't make much progress. But if we had always retained everything, I don't know. I think we would have. I think we probably would have gone that direction, because I'm not sure why we would have felt that we needed to create a new brand. There's certainly brand value in Descent, but that's like the parallel universe question.
Yeah. At this point, we're not considering it.
Yeah, I'm glad with it, with the distinctions that we've made and building a new brand.
if we don't have a default setting for it now, we'll get one hopefully before we release, if not shortly after, I'm sure. Yeah, there's no reason it wouldn't work, but as far as having a default layout for it, I think that's not too hard to make, because it's easy to add a default layout, we just gotta do a little bit of code for it. Well, we're in production now. I think level-wise, yeah, I think we're going to be close to the March goal, but I don't think we're going to make it.
Yeah, it's not like, it's not like we're gonna have this large marketing campaign leading up to launch, and we're gonna have to make all, commitments to other parties and so forth. So it's very easy for us to adjust the date if that's what the game needs. And it's not something that we really need to plan that far in advance. Yet we need to plan it somewhat in advance. But so right now we're not really worried about the date. If I thought it was going to be November of next year, I'd be kind of unhappy about that. But whether it's March or April or May or for some bizarre reason, February. We did pull in one game once and it turned out very well, Freespace 2.
I don't think that's going to happen.
That's not, I don't think that will happen. But I feel really good about where we're at in the game. I don't feel that there's a whole lot of technical risk left in the game for us.
Yeah.
I think the hard code has been written, and we've done a fair amount of One good thing about the demos is they force us to do more optimization.
Yeah, because the demos have taken up more time than we expected.
Yeah.
I think that's one reason we're pushing out a little further, but I'd rather have an awesome game that's a little bit late than a not so awesome game that hits right on time.
Yeah, after not working directly on a game for over 15 years, it would really be a bad choice to not give a game like 2 more months that it needed or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure everyone feels the same way. Nobody really likes to rush something out. So we'll know more about that in a couple of months.
And we're a little worried, like if the date somehow gets pushed back to June, like it's not really a good idea to release a game in June, so it might end up, we might just take that
That's
time and
true.
like, oh, we'll just start working on multiplayer before the game comes out, because we want it to come out at a time where it's going to get publicity and press and people to actually care about it coming out. And June is definitely the worst month to come out. So weapons are mostly done, but they're not 100% done, and like part of that is the visual aspect of them, and some of the ending weapons are not 100% done. But it's easy to modify how they work, and then there are more unique elements to the weapons than was originally posted in the sneak peek forums, because we posted about the weapons and how the upgrades would work and what they were at that point, but those have evolved a little bit. There's a little bit more variety, and I think letting the player choose how the individual weapons work is a little bit more important than making sure that every weapon is like crazy. And then I think some of the secondary weapons and some weapons that haven't been announced are a little bit crazier as well. So there's not going to be totally insane weapons that do things you never expected, but I'm happy with the variety of weapons we have now, especially when you factor in the upgrades. So we're not going to change the basic controls for each platform, aside from making sure the buttons are mapped correctly, but we will support customizing your controls completely on all platforms. I think that's one thing we really enjoy having, and I think it's sort of necessary for people to have that option, because there's so many ways you can map the controls in our game that just having all the options available, I think is a good idea. So basically, all those extra buttons and all those extra axes should be available. And as far as PS4, I'm sure we can look into how to support the accelerometer or the gyroscope. I'm sure it can be mapped to an axis somehow.
Yeah,
Hopefully. Like, I'm not 100% sure on that, but it seems possible.
I think part of the question was going to some of these features on these controllers give a player an advantage. And I guess if it's an extreme advantage, then that's not good. But
I think
most
just
people would
extra
say,
buttons.
yeah,
That's
yeah. If
fine.
it's just extra buttons, I don't think it matters. If it was something, like I would say a joystick is probably an advantage over playing on the keyboard. But we're not going to make it so that the analog axes don't work on a joystick. I mean, that's an extreme example. But if there are features on there that are beneficial to the player, but like you wouldn't want to. Well, actually, you could map 3 movement directions to 1 button and just tricord just by pushing 1 button. Right?
No, I don't think.
Or you could push the 3 buttons at once, whatever. The extra buttons are. I mean,
Yeah.
there's the more buttons and sticks that you have on a controller, the more things you can do with it that might map to advantages, some of which we probably wouldn't even anticipate, while we're developing the game. So, and I would say the mouse can be an advantage. I mean, we have a slider that controls turn rate. We didn't have that in Descent yet. Whatever your device was, you had a maximum turn rate that was relatively low. So, I guess we would have to be mindful of things that make this like no other device can be as good as this one because of the features that it has, but I'm not aware of any real issues on that horizon.
No, I don't think there are. Basically, we'll just support extra buttons and you can remap them. We're probably going to do cross-platform leaderboards, as far as I know.
I remember during the Kickstarter we were asked about cross-platform multiplayer, which is possible.
It's just a lot of work for not a lot of.
I think on the website we should do, we should show everything, and then there would be one super list, like I'm not just the best on Xbox One, I'm the best across all platforms. I think people would care about that. It might be a problem if, and I don't see why, but if one platform was just whatever, better suited to a certain element of the game where there's a leaderboard, that could be.
I'm sure PC would be, because you just have better control options.
Yeah.
So PC versus PS4 and Xbox. If we do have leaderboards on our website, they'll be sortable by platform.
I suppose one thing we could do is when we report the score on the leaderboard, we could also report the device being used. We wouldn't necessarily filter on that. But if someone.
It could be tricky though, because then you have to save it every time someone does a score, because they could change the controller before the game ends.
But we know the controller at
well,
that time.
we know it right when the game ends, but we might not know if, what if they change to keyboard only, disconnect their
they just decide to? Well,
yeah.
Good for them if they make the leaderboard on the keyboard. But we'll know if they're playing on the whatever super jazzed up stick or something like that, right? I was just sending another number. And more on the leaderboards, we will display it in game, right? So you know right away, hey, I just got a really good score. And then we'll have it in, out of the game as well, so you don't have to fire up the game if you just want to see if your friend really did beat you.
Well, that's for sure on PC. I'm not sure about consoles.
That's true.
Yeah. And as far as local leaderboards, I'm not sure if we're going to keep them or not.
I like it.
We like it, but it's just more interface to sort out.
Okay, it'll be a cheat code then.
It's not going to be a cheat code.
Because it'll just
go
be
for local.
Yeah.
For local leaderboard.
Well, it'll just be text on the screen. That way we don't have to make it look good. It's a cheat code, so I'll do the art.
Everything has to be.